So that in and of itself is transforming abundance to scarcity. But then when you look at the water inputs, and water is thought to be one of the things that is going to be becoming much more important from an international standpoint as freshwater sources become less available. Well, it takes thousands of times more water in terms of the gallons used to produce it, to produce a pound of animal protein versus plant protein. So just from a resource standpoint alone, right, we simply cannot continue the way that we are going in terms of feeding people, because right now it is a minority of the world's population that eats the way we do in Western countries. This country literally cannot support 7.5 billion people eating the way we do in Western countries. So we have to make that change.
Now, speaking of change, though, obviously you have agriculture, the biggest employer in the world. What about some of these very powerful lobbyists from some of these farming companies? How do you overcome that when they're worried about people losing their jobs or losing their livelihood? How do you basically connect those dots?
That's an excellent question, and one of the ways that I think the primary way that we do it is through education, letting people know that we really don't have a choice if we're talking about creating a sustainable future and one that involves a planet that we can all live on. But as important as that is learning that farmers can switch from producing one type of food to another type of food. So, for instance, and I can't remember the country, but they had a large dairy industry, and as people started to go more plant-based, the dairy farmers started growing berries and organic fruits and vegetables, which was as profitable, allowed them to make a living, but was much more sustainable and much better for the planet.
In other news now, an Air China plane was forced to make an emergency landing Tuesday. It was flying from Beijing to Los Angeles when a fire alarm went off in the cargo compartment. The plane landed in a remote port town in far eastern Russia. All 188 passengers were evacuated via inflatable slides. Posts on Chinese social media are also praising the crew's professionalism.
Oh, dang.
Well, now let's recap the day's top business headlines. Culture took center stage at the two sessions in Beijing on Wednesday. Chinese President Xi Jinping called on writers, artists, and philosophers to help, quote, strengthen cultural confidence. And Italy may become the largest economy yet to formally join China's Belt and Road Initiative. The European country's media say Rome is negotiating a memorandum of understanding with Beijing. It's expected to be signed when Chinese President Xi Jinping visits at the end of March. And new satellite images show Pyongyang is building a rocket launch site it agreed to shut down. The news comes just days after the Donald Trump-Kim Jong-un summit ended abruptly in Hanoi without any agreement. Well, that's our show for tonight, but you can always stay in touch with business stories from around the world. You can check us out from here in Washington, Beijing, or Nairobi at the country. Reject.
Of money into all of this, right? And others.
How Chinese consumers are spending on culture and entertainment.
Listen up.
By Jeffrey Towson. He's a professor of investment at Peking University's Guanghua School of Management. He's currently in Mexico City. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So obviously culture, a big umbrella, including music, films, books, video games, art, etc. But give us an idea of what's trending in China's cultural consumption right now.
Right. The cultural consumption is a big phenomenon. It's a wide trend. There's a lot of aspects to it. But the epicenter of cultural consumption in China is the smartphone, because the smartphone is the epicenter of all Chinese consumption. Anything that can tap into that directly, that can reach 1 billion plus digitally enthusiastic consumers, just takes off a lot faster. So that's video, that's gaming, that's augmented reality aspects of virtual tourism. Anything that can reach that demographic through that mechanism is just going to be bigger and faster. And that's pretty much true for everything consumption-wise in China right now.
Now, you have things that are popular, and then you also have the things that are the most lucrative. So of the cultural sectors, which ones are bringing in the most money right now?
I would definitely be looking at online video, and online books are similar, that's a big thing happening right now, just because it doesn't cost a lot of money to scale it up. Museums and other things are nice, but if you open 100 of them, it costs you a lot more money. The technology aspect scales quite nicely, so they tend to be more lucrative.
And what would you say are some of the factors that are really driving the growth of China's cultural consumption?
Right, the engine of this is basically discretionary income, that it's going up every year. Despite all the trade talk and all that, Chinese consumers have more discretionary income this year than they did last year. It's going to go up this year again. And at the end of the day, you can't drink that many beers, you can't eat that much food. Certain types of expenditure flatline and others go up with discretionary spending. On that list is entertainment, culture, tourism, education. You can take nicer vacations, you can go to more museums, you can watch more movies. That number keeps going up while other sectors somewhat do flatline. So we're seeing a big shift of money into all of this right now.
So what are Chinese consumers looking for in their experiences? Is it just about entertainment, or is it education? What are they really trying to get out of this?
Right, this is one where you have to sort of go micro, because it turns out Chinese consumers are actually very, very complicated. Families spend money very differently than, say, young millennials. When you look at families in this regard, the thing that's going to jump out at you is education. Education tends to be an expenditure at the household level as opposed to the individual level. There's a tremendous amount of educational spending happening right now. You look at millennials, you might see young friends, young couples going on a lot of tourism, which you can see pretty much anywhere in the world right now, including Mexico City. You can see it here. You look at elderly, not elderly, but more middle-aged, later in life Chinese consumers, you're going to see group tourism. So it does sort of play out subsector by subsector very differently, but most of this you would put in the category of discretionary spending, things we like versus things we need. We don't need to watch videos, we don't need to read books for the most part. It's something we do for enjoyment. So most of this would be in that category of entertainment, enjoyment, as opposed to necessity.
So I'm sure a lot of foreign companies and investors are wondering how they can tap into China's huge market. What sort of opportunities do you see for them?
Probably the most common thing you'll see, you will see things like new museums, new videos that are more in this regard, but probably the broader trend you're seeing is people are sort of incorporating culture into everything. And the numbers behind this are pretty solid. If you incorporate culture into a product, maybe it's a Starbucks, you sell more versus a company that doesn't do that. If you actually go into the Starbucks in most of China, you will see they look a lot like traditional tea houses with sort of an upgrade. So we're seeing culture sort of integrated into makeup, into beauty, into tourism, into things like coffee. Across the board, this is a phenomenon, and the numbers are solid. If you do this, you sell more versus a product or service that doesn't do this.
All right, thank you so much for your insights. Professor Jeffrey Towson there of Peking University's Guanghua School of Management. All right, still ahead, a key campaign promise for Donald Trump.